One of my earliest memories from childhood was from Halloween. I remember I had just turned 4, and my mother and grandmother were trying to stuff me into this incredibly uncomfortable outfit that was supposed to be E.T., the extraterrestrial. And for those of you that might remember grocery store costumes from the 1980s, these were no picnic. They were made of a heavyweight plastic that would have the character design printed on the outside. And they usually came with a thin plastic mask that had an elastic band that would go around the head. They were extremely hot, even more so if your mom insisted on dressing you in warm clothes underneath, never taking into account that a plastic jumper was plenty warm enough, especially considering the fact they don't breathe. Midway through trick-or-treating, you'd be exhausted, not from walking around, but from the sweat and the stickiness of the layers of clothing, plus that plastic wrapper. I wore that same costume again the next year, but blessedly, the jumper tore and was irreparable. Plus, my elementary school banned the masks for those costumes, so Halloween became a time for creativity and ingenuity for my family. My mom would buy up a bunch of leftover makeup after Halloween on clearance, and that's what would dictate our costumes for the next year. Of course, there was certainly candy. Lots and lots and lots of candy. As we got older, my cousins and I would engineer several costumes for the evening in order to score more loot and thereby earn even more treats, which we painstakingly hid from one another in the hopes of making it to Easter, the next big candy holiday for our families. I grew up in the heart of the San Fernando Valley, just a few miles away from Mission San Fernando Rey de España. The people who weren't white in my neighborhood were Mexican, and it was here at a friend's house that I was introduced to Dia de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead. Several of our neighbors would have these beautiful altars in their backyards with plates of food and tequila or beer covered in photos and trinkets of family long since passed on or people who had just recently passed. The most beautiful things on these altars were the sugar skulls, which I remember being both horrified and intrigued by. The young Mexican girls would revel in having half their face painted like a sugar skull, and I now know that this was meant as a homage to straddling the place between life and death. I remember the mother of one of my friends noticing my intense desire for one of those beautiful skulls, one of those beautiful creations, and she handed it to me. I took it home and placed it on my dresser in a place of honor. I remember vividly that it was a white skull with beautiful blue and purple and red flowers and piping painted and sculpted all over the outside of it. And the next morning, I woke up to my mom screaming at me because my beautiful sugar skull was covered in ants. I didn't know that sugar skulls were actually made of sugar. Costumes, makeup, and masks are all a part of our everyday life. We are all playing a different role at different times. We are all straddling a fence between one place and another. We might not do it with makeup or a mask, but we do it. Some of us woke up this morning, put on a suit and tie, or another carefully chosen outfit, and left our homes to become business people, bankers, computer programmers, or even ministers. Some of us donned a uniform provided by an employer, and with that we become the server, the grocery store checker, or the fast food cashier. Some of us put on makeup, and while they wear it differently, it may be worn differently for different places. For work it might be subtle and subdued with neutral tones and careful choices. For many of us, this happens at different times, so we are getting into our costumes into the evening or the wee hours of the morning. Whenever it is, you're putting on a costume. you're becoming a different version of you. Oliver Wendell Holmes once said, without wearing any mask that we are conscious of, we have a special face for each friend. I'd go even further, and I'd say that we extend those masks to anyone that we have to interact with, the people who make up our day, the customers, the employers, the people passing us on the street. They all see the mask and the costume that we're wearing, and they too have theirs on as well. I think about this a lot. Are we just changing a costume to grasp for more candy? Are we no better than the ants who devoured my sugar skull, mindlessly working and toiling to simply eat and survive? I wonder if I'm being authentic. As someone who has struggled with the feeling of being a square peg in a round hole, I wonder if I'm being true to myself, to my son, to my husband, to even you, my congregation. Am I being me when I put on this suit in the morning? When I come here to speak to you? I reconcile this because honestly I feel like I am like one of those little girls wearing the sugar skull makeup, straddling the border between two worlds, a minister in formation, but still learning and growing, fitting into my new role, my new costume. Have you ever felt this way? Costumes, makeup, and masks shouldn't define you. Yes, they are the wrapper, and sometimes they are uncomfortable, but they shouldn't define you. I prefer to think that they should highlight the beauty that is you. They should enforce your desires. They should reflect the image that you want to present to the world. Uniforms become like armor. You wear them to express that particular company, what that particular company wishes you to express, but your face, your expressions, your spirit, that belongs to you still. The truth is that we do straddle worlds. I know I do. We don't want to take the struggles of work home with us, and we don't want to take the problems of home to work. If we do, and I know several of us have, the results are usually pretty grim and pretty disastrous. I am reminded of the stories and descriptions of the goddess Hecate, who ruled the crossroads of ancient Greece. She is often portrayed as a triple goddess in her own right, each of her faces pointing between different directions. In my favorite pen and ink drawing of her, she is portrayed as having torches in one set of hands to light the way for those that are lost or in need of direction, swords in a second set of hands to fight those who would dare lie to her, and a scroll and pen in the last set to document those that come and go. I can see parallels of myself in her. My role as a minister is to light the path for those seeking or for those who need assistance. My role as protector compels me to protect and care for my family, my friends, and my loved ones. And then there is the role of the scholar, my desire for learning and knowledge continuous. Is there a figure, mythological, fictional, spiritual, or actual, who you can relate to like this? Is there someone that you think of when times are hard for you and the weight of the costumes that you wear become too much and that world is just weighting down your shoulders? Someone from whom you can draw strength from when the mask doesn't quite fit, but you need it to? I'd like to challenge you to find this archetype for yourself, and I'd love to hear each and every one of your decisions. We all have busy lives, and it seems even more so now, since we are also very connected and so scheduled. While we straddle between two worlds, between many worlds, be it home, work, school, and church, remember you. Remember that person under the mask, the being who is made of flesh, bone, and blood, beneath the costume. Costumes are surely important, but if they are too heavy, exhausting you, and not allowing you to breathe, then perhaps you're wearing too many layers, and you need to let go of some of those things and delight below. Remember the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said in his essay, Self-Reliance, "Be yourself, no base imitator of another, but your best self. There's something which you can do better than another. Listen to that inward voice and bravely obey that. Do the things at which you are great, not which you were never made for. Wear your costume proudly, but wear it as you. Blessed be."